Now that all the sub-assemblies are built, I've got the wing built, got a boom, some stab glued together, got a fuselage done, and on mine, just your option how you want to do this. I prefer to cover everything because for me it's just easier to get them covered now than try to do them later. My friend Chuck, he assembles the whole thing and then he covers it all once it's all glued together. So you got a couple options. And of course, as we went along there, I just painted the pieces right there. So next, what we're going to need to do is we're going to mount the fuselage to the wing. And we're also going to do this with CA, same we did last time. So it's not that difficult. Might need a paper towel. What we're going to do is we're going to take the wing, and the first thing we do on the wing, another thing you're going to need also putting the wing on, you're going to need a couple of clamps. These are just woodworking clamps. These are some cheap ones I get at Harbor Freight. Any good woodworking clamps will work. Any clamp, because you're going to need to clamp this down onto the wing to get a good bond. And we're going to be using some CA and some kicker. So real simply, now when you line the fuselage up, you make sure you got the lines there, the center section there. We're going to line the fuselage in the center of it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to prop this wing tip up because we're going to put some glue on the top and bottom side of it. We're going to apply some CA. Again, this is thick CA, and this is the stuff I get from Woodcraft, which has a long application time. Probably okay with most thick CAs. Just make sure they don't set up super quick. Just a little bit of drying time. Doesn't take much, but you do want to be able to do a quick repositioning if needed be. Okay, so we're going to put some CA, copious amount front, top, and bottom. Set that aside. Then we're going to take the fuselage. I'm just propping this wing up so glue doesn't get on the table. We'll shoot some kicker inside the wing saddle. Now we're going to slide it on one end. We're going to get it close, and once we get it close, we're going to pry apart the top part of the fuselage. And so we got a little extra space there, and we're going to try to slide it in as best we can without smearing too much of that CA. And then, there we go, that worked out pretty good. Doesn't look like we smeared any. So now, we're going to line this fuselage up right front there. I forgot to mention, it doesn't hurt to have a couple T-pins to kind of hold things in place once you get them centered. Just kind of eyeball it, get it where it fits right in the center. Looks good. Now, take your clamp, see it on the table, so it didn't get on anything. And you're working kind of quickly here. And we're going to just clamp the bottom, just enough pressure to pull it in contact with the wing. And we're going to do the same thing. Oops. I would need to do the front one first. Pull it down. There we go. There we go. And just check your work, which should be good. And once that's on there, that kicker should be kicking off pretty quick. Looks like it's already kicking off. And we'll set that aside. We got that like that. I may have pulled that away from the camera a little bit. Okay, we need to clamp it down and make sure we clamp on the shells real nicely. Okay, in that kit somewhere you'll find a couple of 1 1/4 inch cut 1/8 inch dowels, and they're going to go in the top and bottom of this firewall. So what you're going to do is get an 1/8 inch drill bit and just drill in just on the top and bottom. And the middle one is going to be used for our centering spar. Just drill in far enough for those dowels to go in. On the center one, just make sure you're going to find a longer piece of dowel. Just make sure that it fits snug inside that center hole. Okay, if you have to drill it out, but probably shouldn't have to drill it out. Just make sure it fits snug in that center hole. We're going to use that to line up the boom. Now these dowels, I have glue ready. Now I like to just use Gorilla Glue on these dowels if this glue is any good, because it expands out inside the foam. And all I do is I just take this stuff here and just shoot it down inside the hole. It's going to get messy. What I'm going to do is fill in the hole and then just inject it in the hole. The reason I like using this is because, like I say, it expands out inside the foam. Makes for a really solid bond. The thing I don't like about this glue is it's just freaking messy. And then we'll just simply shove these spars down the side in there and push them in until it goes in flush. And do the same thing with the bottom. If you wanted to, you could use epoxy on this step. This is just this works good enough, and most everybody's got some of this Gorilla Glue laying around somewhere. I like the white stuff because it does dry quicker than the other stuff. Although I try to use this stuff as little as possible because it's just freaking messy. Now, what those dowels do, obviously, to make sure they're flush, is they support the firewall. Okay, now the glue on the boom assembly, and this is probably the most important step of building this entire airplane, is getting this stab on there straight. It has to be lined up with that center line, because if this is off just a little bit, you're going to be down elevator or up elevator just to make the thing fly straight. And that's not good on a boomer, especially one that flies as fast as this one. So you want that stab to be absolutely straight to the center line. Now in this kit you'll find another piece of fiberglass spar material. And what you want to do is, another thing, since I've already covered my wings, I did this at the same time. You want to put this boom assembly on there, and using the jig that's supplied, there's a jig there, and we'll use that to, we're going to also use the same thing to locate the booms on the airplane. So what I did was I just simply pulled this up in there, and I pinned it in place, and then I carefully just cut out the laminate. What we're doing here though now is we're going to line up this boom. So with this piece of dowel, you want to also, that's one thing I was pointing out, I guess, put the boom in there and insert that dowel where it's in there nice and firm, and cut it where it just doesn't quite meet the stab. And then we've also got the center line of the stab marked. Okay. Now on this dowel that sticks out, take 90 degree, anything that shows 90 degree, I'm just using a protractor here, and measure it and make sure that this dowel going both directions like that is 90 degrees to the firewall. If it's a little bit loose and you have to, tack it in with a little bit of CA. This one kind of press fitted, so we're good to go here. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to glue this on. We're going to use goop on this step because it dries a little bit slower. It gives a little bit of chance in case something's messed up or off a little bit. It gives you a little bit of working time. This particular one looks like it came out just about dead on, so we're going to glue these booms on using the jig and to make sure it's spaced properly. And what we want to do is we're going to pin these jigs in place, and we want that pointer just to be flush with the center line of that dowel, that stab, and right in the center. And that'll align that stab up to the center line of this the firewall. So we've got this in there, we've got all that ready to go. This is marked, everything's marked. Just take your time. It's actually a relatively easy step. It doesn't take that much. Now we're going to take some goop and you want to use enough to do the job, but remember this is adding weight. That's why one reason I don't like using this goop. This is some heavy glue. I feel oftentimes this stuff is overused in building some of these airplanes that we do just because it's foam and it's easy to use. when in a lot of cases CA works just as good, and it's a whole lot lighter. In cases like the firewall, we didn't use it. We went ahead and used some five-minute epoxy. And then, of course, there's always Gorilla Glue, which is light, but stuff is so messy, that's why I don't like messing with it. Well, just put us on enough to make sure it does the job. It fills in nicely. There we go. Well, we got about that much on there. You can see, top and bottom. Now we're just going to carefully slide the booms. And since the laminate's already cut out, I kind of know exactly where to put it. Pushing all the way up in there. I'm taking this jig, and lay this down on the fuselage, and we're going to use this to get our boom spacing correct. There we go. Now we'll make sure to pull this thing all the way to where they're tight on the trailing edge. Now it's just a simple matter of pinning it in place, and if you have to pull any of the booms one way or the other, or top and bottom, to get that stuff to get it to line up, just do whatever it takes. It shouldn't take much. So this one's coming out pretty much dead on. As you can see, our pointer is dead on flush with it. We'll just add a couple more pins here. Push them in there firmly so we'll draw on that goop. So I've got a little extra goop flowing out the bottom here. The thing I don't like about this stuff is it's just messy. Now, you got silver glide glue, so you got a little bit of time to make any adjustments. If you have to make any adjustments there. See, this is almost dead on. I want that thing to be flush with that ceramic mark. A couple more pins. See, we're slightly down on that one there, so we're going to just take that pin out and pull it forward a little bit, so we pull the stab up a little bit. Same with this pin. Pull it a little bit. Again, we want this dowel to be flush with that stab. There we go. You can see we're dead on it now. Now. Take a couple of small clamps. Okay, keep an eye on this jig, make sure it stays the same. This will space it out. I'll clamp that down. Now, look, make sure you got the front pieces. If you have to add pins to hold the front pieces down, just do that. But this thing should set pretty well flush on it. All said and done. Now, we're just going to take this assembly and just set it aside and let it dry. And basically, for the most part, we've got to cut the slots for the fins. We're pretty much done with the Demon. Now, this one here I'm going to set up for a while. I think we're going to finish it up for a little bit, so I didn't put any electronics in. Chuck posted some pictures on Facebook. The servos go up there. I usually put the VTX right in here. The speed controller go there, obviously. On the bottom, make a cutout. Good place to mount the receivers on the bottom. Make a cutout to go in there. and then cover that with a piece of Coroplast. That works really good. And of course the servo goes back there. You'll have to route the wire along the boom, then up and into the receiver. That's why it's another good place to put the receiver back there. With the servos on the top, you can always just run a hole all the way through and then run the wires down the bottom. We didn't see it. And that's basically it. Just got to get the fins glued on, get all the electronics put in it, and get it ready to go, and then go fly it.